Hi, my name's Anna Scholes. I am excited to be with you today. This feels kind of weird to me to be kind of talking about my accomplishments and leadership because I think of myself more as a servant leader, but I will do my best to help you along in your path. I live in Twin Falls, Idaho, which is a great place to live. We have a great walking path that I use with my dogs every day. If you come into town, you'll probably cross the Prime Bridge. And if you do, take a minute to look out over the side because you might be able to see some base jumpers because this is one of the places where base jumping is legal all year round. It's kind of cool. It's a long way from where I grew up. I grew up in Johnstown, Pennsylvania, which is an economically depressed area. When I was graduating from high school, there was like a 22% unemployment rate, and so jobs were a big deal. And so I went to the University of Pittsburgh at Johnstown for a year, then transferred to Pitt, Maine in Pittsburgh. And I went to pharmacy school mostly because there was a pharmacist that said to me that you'll always have a job as a pharmacist, and that was really kind of important to me. After graduation, I worked for Eli Lilly for about a dozen years in sales and marketing. I moved 4 times at the company's request and loved it. But my last move was here to Twin Falls because I met a guy who is now my husband, and this was his hometown, and he wanted to move back here. So I'm really fortunate that we are economically blessed so that I only work part-time in some local community pharmacies. And so that's given me a chance to get really active in the local education world. I first got involved when my kids were little. I was really disappointed in my choices for daycare and preschool, and that goes through in Idaho, all education. In fact, last year, Idaho had the lowest K-12 per pupil spending in all 50 states. So we spent about $7,800 per student, and the national average is like 14,000. So we very much underfund education here. Because of this, I am pretty active in all sorts of groups. I serve on the Boys and Girls Club boards. I've served as PTO president, Booster Club president, lots of different organizations that are connected with kids. I'm still serving on the Boys and Girls Club board, and our school district has an education foundation. That's a lot of time to spend in meetings, I will admit, but during this time, I have to say, I was able to create a lot of great friends and connections that helped me get other things done for other organizations. So the cross reactivity has really been beneficial for me. So I'd say now, they always talk about the 80-20 rule, 80% or 20% of the people do 80% of the work. Well, now I think it's about 90-10 because the same people are kind of involved in all sorts of organizations that I'm involved in. In 2014, I co-chaired a citizens group to pass a school bond. In Idaho, school employees aren't allowed to campaign to help pass a bond, and it's really hard to pass a bond here. You need a 66.666% positive voter rate to pass a bond, and this particular bond was for $74 million. So it's bigger than we'd ever seen before. We built 3 schools and kind of helped renovate some other schools. But a lot of people in our community thought that that was going to be way too much money. The good news is that the vote reached 67.7%. So the required supermajority, but just barely. I certainly didn't do it alone. There was a big team of capable people that worked together because we were concerned about the schools being overcrowded. So what we did is we focused our efforts in kind of identifying who the supporters were for the bond and then trying to get those people to get out and vote, actually vote. And for people that were against it, we didn't argue with them. We just kind of let them alone. The strategy was we didn't want to rile them up so that they would create a more formal coalition against the bond. That had happened in other Idaho communities, and luckily it did not happen to us. A twisty-turvy example of how I connect things in my life at around, this was about 2012 or so. My kids were in middle school, and the school's principal asked me to head up a fundraising project to resurface the track. The track was in bad shape, and they felt like it wasn't safe to have kids running on it. So we did lots of fun fundraisers, including entering a local art contest where we won 3rd place, which was nice. But you can only raise so much money with pancake breakfasts and spaghetti feeds and those kind of things. And our goal for this was like $100,000. So most of the local foundations that had money said they would help us, but nobody wanted to help with first dollar. They all wanted to help us when we got closer to the goal. So it's really hard to find that first dollar. I think people got sick of hearing me say how much O'Leary needs a new middle school track. And so out of the blue, really, we got a $20,000 donation from the Twin Falls Optimist Club. And the following year, they gave us another $10,000. And with that money in the bank, our cause was legit. So other money came in, and we were able to complete the project in a couple of years. So, of course, I had to join this group, the Twin Falls Optimist Club, because they focus their efforts on helping kids, and that's my jam. So fast forward a few years, and I was the president of the club. And while at the same time, I was also the secretary of the high school booster clubs. And the boosters were selling raffle tickets to win a car, and the car was worth about $20,000. Well, the Optimist Club had to support by buying lots of tickets, and we won the car. So then we had an opportunity, we had some extra money. The Optimist Club does a lot of things in the community. Biggest thing we do is coats for kids, where we provide coats for a new coat for kids that need them. And so we'll give out maybe 600 to 1,000 coats a year, kind of depending on how cold it is and what the economy is like. But we also recognized that there was a need for a place for kids that age out of foster care. So that money from the car winnings became the seed money for the Twin Falls Optimist Youth House. That's a place for kids that age out of foster care, and gives them some time to gain some adulting skills. The history of the house is part of your reading, so I'm not going to go into a lot of detail about it here, but just to say we had a great team of people that saw the need for this place and were willing to try to make this work. We hadn't seen a house like this really anywhere else. At first, this was just a renovation project. So it was an old house that the county owned. It was slated to be torn down, but we were able to find enough people to help us, builders, etc., that we were able to renovate it and make it a really nice space. And then our intention was to contract with a group from Boise that we thought knew how to run a place like this. Well, it didn't work out. This wasn't really in their service area, and we weren't willing to do all this renovation and then hand it over to someone that wasn't really focused on making the kids that were going to live in the house, ready for their next steps. So we decided we were going to run it ourselves, which we had no experience. After a few years, we were able to get our own 501c3, and as you guessed, I'm on the board. We are very hands-on. We create policies, we do fundraising, we help kids find jobs, gain skills like cooking, balancing a checkbook, getting along with roommates, kind of basic things like that maybe parents would normally help with. But in this case, these kids don't have parents that are very supportive and can help them. We recently hired an executive director that will make our programming better, and it also lightened the load for us as volunteers. Another of my leadership responsibilities is at the College of Southern Idaho. I'll refer to it as CSI, but that's not the TV show, the CSI. CSI was formed in the 1960s. The start of it was a Stanford doctoral student's dissertation that talked about the need. The Chamber of Commerce got on board, local government, and they all got help from the federal government. So it wasn't one person or a group, it was a lot of groups working together to get a community college funded in Twin Falls. At the time, the population here was only about 20,000. So it's kind of a small community. We're up to about 50,000 now. So we're growing pretty fast. CSI serves about 8,000 students a year. And we are a community college or a 2-year college for the most part. We have lots of clubs. We have student government. We have great athletic teams and great fine arts productions and beautiful fine arts building. We take a lot of pride in offering these programs and also being affordable and giving personalized experience for our students. So for an in-state student, our tuition and fees are less than $4,000 a year, and the student to faculty ratio is 21-1. So pretty good numbers there. How we're governed. All community colleges in Idaho have a 5-member elected board. These members have to live within a certain geographic zone. And I ran because I was asked. I was asked by the retiring board member to run for his seat. He expressed confidence in my decision making. Just before he was getting ready to retire, CSI had a lot of controversy. We sponsor a refugee center, and that was a target of a lot of criticism. And there was a small group of people that wanted it closed. And so I think my predecessor knew that I would be willing to defend our sponsorship of the refugee program. And for this and a bunch of other programs that I really do care about, I ran for the board. This was my first time running for anything. And well, since I ran unopposed, I won with 100% of the vote. What does a board of trustees do for community college in Idaho? Well, first thing is we are responsible for hiring and firing the president of the college. That's the only employee decision that we make, but it's probably one of the most important. We set direction for policies and regulations. So right now, think of things like masking or vaccination requirements, that kind of stuff. We manage the property, the real estate, acquiring new property if we need it, repairing property, selling property, and we manage the budget. So trying to make sure that we're fiscally responsible, and if we wanted to pass a bond, we would have to approve that process. So my main focus as a board member really is making sure that we do all we can to serve the students that don't usually go to college. The college president knows this, and he knows it's important to me. And the first thing he ever wants to talk with me about is our focused efforts on diversity, equity, and inclusion, which, of course, I think is important. Only 38% of high school graduates in Idaho go on to college after their graduation year. Excuse my cat. I have 5, by the way. So it's important for us to help our go-on rate. About a quarter of the Magic Valley residents are Hispanic, and last year about a quarter of the CSI students were Hispanic. So we are proud that we were able to get the designation from the U.S. Department of Education as a Hispanic serving institution, and that came with a lot of work from a lot of people, and also it does come with some federal funding. While I'm not a minority, I do understand growing up in a family where my parents didn't speak English very well. My parents both came over from Italy as teenagers, so I really do consider my advocacy for this group really core to my being. So I give a call to everyone in the room, or various rooms, I guess, especially the women and minorities that are part of this group, to consider serving on these kind of boards. Our perspectives are different. Last week, I attended a meeting for all the community college trustees and presidents, and the white men in the room had the women outnumbered 2-1, and there were only 2 women of color in the room. So I can't stress how important it is for women and minorities to be in the room where the policies and the focus for the future is set. Um, I'd like to tell you a little bit more about another leadership quality that I'm developing. I'd like to tell you a little bit about my pottery experience. Once I move my cat again. Um, I have taken a Japanese tea bowl pottery class twice, and I can still barely center a hunk of clay on a wheel. Um, but we had an outstanding teacher. She was amazing. Learned so much from her, just about not just pottery, but life. And well, to be honest, one of the problems that we have at CSI is that we don't pay our instructors enough. So she found a job teaching in Kansas, so she left us this summer. And she had tons of beautiful pottery. And I asked her what she was going to do with them, and she said that she was going to put it on Etsy because she could use the money for the move. And I knew that she did not have time to, you know, put all these things online and then pack them up and ship them. So I asked her if we could put on a going away / pottery sale for her. So I organized some friends, and because I'm active in the Arts Council, I had access to a free room, and we had nice food, and we invited all the people that we knew, mostly using Facebook, and we were able to sell everything, over 100 pieces, and we made over $4,000. And she felt loved, which was important, and the money was appreciated. So my takeaways, one, never underestimate the power of a simple ask. Most of the things that I volunteered for, I've done because somebody said, hey, would you do this? And it has showed confidence in my abilities. I think a lot of times you hear, oh, women and minorities don't serve on these kinds of boards. And I'm wondering if it's because they're not really asked to, or invited to be part of that group. So maybe even if you're not asked, go ahead and invite yourself. And lesson 2 is don't be afraid of failure. I do a lot of fundraising, and a lot of times I worry about the what ifs. What if people don't come? What if I don't have enough food? What if? And what if this doesn't work? And what will my supporters think if we fail? And when I talk to supporters, they're just that. They're supporters. And usually they're grateful that I'm out there doing the work. So they're not critical of it didn't go just as planned. And even when things don't go as planned, sometimes it leads to another opportunity, and sometimes it turns out even better than your original goal. So go ahead and take some risks. Leadership involves teamwork. So I'd say surround yourself with capable people, listen to what they say, work together, and I'm sure you'll be successful. So I wish you lots of success in whatever you plan to do.